On the lineup today, Heisman analysis, quarterback controversies, and much, much more. Stay tuned. Hello everybody, and welcome to Lions Lineup, the sports show here at Lions Television. I'm your host, Chris Javik, joined here today by Joe Caputo. Joe will talk about our first topic, the NFL, for today's show. Joe?
It's been an interesting past few weeks in San Francisco, but since Jim Harbaugh took over, what else is new? Normally, a quarterback that has led his team to an NFC championship game a year ago would be considered a long-term solution. Normally, the player leading the league in completion percentage and in the top 5 in passer rating in the NFL would have some job security. But then again, normally a team that hadn't posted a winning record in 8 previous seasons wouldn't be able to make the conference championship the following year with minimal personnel changes. Since the Harbaugh era began out by the Bay in 2011, things have always been somewhat unorthodox, but no one can argue with the results. However, the story keeps on going, and the most recent chapter revolves around the quarterback situation. When Alex Smith went down with a concussion a month ago against the Rams, Colin Kaepernick stepped in without the bat of an eye. Not only did he lead the Niners back in that game to ultimately tie St. Louis, he followed that up with a dominant performance over one of the league's best defenses in the Bears, and then took his A game on the road and beat the Saints in one of the toughest environments in all of football. However, a recent overtime loss to the Rams has the media thinking again. Is this the right move to stick with Kaepernick? Did the Niners need a change after how much success they enjoyed over the past year and a half? Nonetheless, though this move does have a strong potential to backfire, I think you have to give Harbaugh credit for at least taking a chance. And if the move does work, well, so much for the if it ain't broke, don't fix it mentality. So Chris, I ask you right now, was this a good move or a bad move?
I think in the long term of things, Kaepernick will be the guy in San Francisco. But as of right now, second place in the NFC overall, just coming off an NFC championship mid-season, I do not think they should have they shouldn't have changed Alex Smith. I understand Kaepernick came in after Smith got hurt, did a great job, was a spark plug for them. But in the long term, mid-season going on, I think Smith's your guy. He's run the offense for about a few years now. Got him to the NFC championship game last year. I like the move long term, like I said, but I feel that for Smith, he did so well for you last year, brought you to the championship game. To make the move mid-year, going into the playoffs right now, I just don't think it's going to work out in San Francisco.
I personally have a lot of different feelings about this move. But ultimately, I actually agree with the move that Jim Harbaugh made this year. And the main reason I believe that is it gives the 49ers a lot more diversity in past 30 yards down the field. Alex Smith was pretty much non-existent in deep passing situations in the past. And additionally, their red zone offense the past year and a half, even though they've been a great team with a great defense and a solid offense, they have not been able to score touchdowns in the red zone. And Colin Kaepernick's running ability in the red zone gives them a huge dynamic that they did not have when Alex Smith was at quarterback. So in that sense, I really do think that this helps the 49ers offense. Now, whether or not Kaepernick will be able to handle the pressure down the stretch and into the playoffs, that's going to be the major concern that I have for Colin Kaepernick. But I think in terms of the strategy and game plan, it's a lot harder now to game plan for San Francisco than it was to game plan when they had Alex Smith at quarterback.
I'm much like you, where when I first heard this, I had a few different opinions. I feel for a guy like Alex Smith who really just lost his job because he had a concussion. And I agree with you in saying that, it's definitely much tougher game planning for Kaepernick. He's so diverse, like you said. We saw him take off for 50 yards downfield. And when he did come in, he did win 2 games in a row. And he had the 3rd game in the bag against St. Louis until I think it was Delaney Walker who dropped the ball in the end zone. So really, Kaepernick's come on and just done great for them. It's made Harbaugh look like a little bit of a genius. But as far as, like you said, the pressure in the playoffs, I'm not sure how Kaepernick's going to be able to handle that.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see how he fares in the playoffs. One thing I want to look out for going forward into the future is what the 49ers do with Alex Smith after this year. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
he's a formidable backup at least, and he could probably be starting on a bunch of teams.
Absolutely.
But, I mean, for the most part, I think that Colin Kaepernick should be the guy going forward for San Francisco. I think that he's going to give them the best chance to win offensively in the rest of the season, and he's shown. I mean, he had a big game in New Orleans a couple weeks ago where he came out and he played pretty well, and that's a really tough environment to play in. So if he could play there, I think it bodes well for the future for San Francisco.
I agree. For the future, we can agree Kaepernick's definitely the guy. All right, well, we need to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more Lions lineup right after this. But first, we have a trivia question for you. Who was the last defensive player to win the Heisman Trophy? The answer coming up in just a minute. Welcome back. Before the break, we asked you who the last defensive player to win the Heisman Trophy was, and the answer is Charles Woodson of the Michigan Wolverines, who won it in 1997. It's funny, one of the last stories I wrote for Lions Lineup was a Week 6 college football Heisman breakdown. On October 3rd, I had all but given away the Heisman Trophy to West Virginia quarterback Geno Smith. Oh, how quickly things change. West Virginia then went on to lose their next 5 games. Along with his team's BCS chances, Geno Smith watched his Heisman chances plummet into the ground. Heisman contenders and pretenders came and went, but we only have 3 men left standing, 3 men with invitations to New York for the Heisman Trophy presentation. Kansas State quarterback Colin Klein is the definition of X factor in every sense of the word. The Kansas State football team goes as Colin Klein goes, and that was to an 11-1 record, a Big 12 championship, a number 5 ranking in the country, and a berth in a BCS bowl. Colin Klein led the Wildcats with 2,490 passing yards, a 66 completion percentage, and 15 touchdown passes in the air. The senior also chipped in 890 rushing yards and 22 touchdowns on the ground. Klein emerged as the Heisman favorite after Geno Smith faded away until these next 2 players burst onto the scene. Oftentimes, the Heisman Trophy is not just about the stats, but the stories that come with each player. The combination of factors is exactly why we'll be seeing these next 2 players in New York. Manti Te'o is every sports reporter's favorite story this football season. The Notre Dame senior linebacker out of Hawaii has been the key player for one of the top defenses in the country, an inspiring player who lost both his grandmother and his girlfriend to leukemia in the same day earlier in the season, was the emotional leader for what is now the #1 team in the country. He has led them right to a BCS national championship, amounting 103 tackles, 1.5 sacks, and 7 interceptions, a very impressive statistic for a middle linebacker. Te'o is easily the top defensive player in the country and fully deserves his ticket to New York. He would most likely be the favorite if it were not for Texas A&M quarterback Johnny Manziel. Nicknamed Johnny Football, the redshirt freshman signal caller for the Aggies has been the must-watch player in college football this year. Manziel led the Aggies to a successful first season in the SEC, going 10-2. Johnny Football wasted no time rewriting the record books, breaking Cam Newton's total yardage record with 4,600 total yards, around 3,400 in the air, and around 1,100 on the ground, to go along with 43 total touchdowns. These stats to go along with his electrifying playmaking ability is exactly why I think we will watch Johnny Football transform into Johnny Heisman in just a few weeks. All right, Joe. Heisman Trophy, who are you going to give it to?
Well, I know you're a big fan of Johnny Football, and I'm going to have to agree with you. I don't think that Colin Klein is going to win. I think that we could eliminate him from the discussion. I think Te'o's got a shot. It comes down to whether or not you think that a defensive player makes that big of a difference as big of a difference on the field as a quarterback. And you see the discussion a lot. Now, one thing working in Manti Te'o's favor is Notre Dame really does base a lot of their game off defense. And they are one of the best defensive teams in the country, and they're playing in the BCS National Championship game in a couple weeks. So Manti Te'o definitely has an argument. He had a huge interception in the final game against USC. He's played exceptionally well over this year, but Johnny Manziel's got something that even Manti Te'o may not be able to say at the end of the year, and he beat Alabama, and Johnny Manziel is the best offensive player in the country. And I still think that offense dominates over defense in a lot of the award discussions in college and the pros.
I definitely agree with what you said about Colin Klein. I mean, Colin Klein deserves to be in New York right now, but it's basically a 2-horse race. It's Manti Te'o versus Johnny Manziel. And the one thing I guess you could say about Johnny Manziel over Manti Te'o and Colin Klein is he sort of had that one Heisman moment. You know, where we saw him against Alabama drop back, get hit, fumble the ball, regain a touchdown, sprint to his left and throw a touchdown. So, I mean, that's like the one moment we kind of looked at. But he's done it all year long. Like you said, he broke Cam Newton's SEC yardage record. We thought, you know, maybe never be touched. He did it in his first year, which is unbelievable. And Manti Te'o is a great player, best defensive player in the country. But in my opinion, he does not deserve the Heisman. I mean, if your game statistic is 6 tackles and that's it, I mean, how much of a difference maker were you really on that given day? Notre Dame, a lot of their games are based around defense because their offense isn't as high scoring as, say, you know, a Kansas State or a Texas A&M. But I think in the long run, I can't give it to solely a middle linebacker. I don't think he made enough of an impact over the course of a season.
It's extremely difficult to make a case for a defensive player to win the Heisman. Like you said, the last player to win it was in the trivia question, Charles Woodson, and he was a defensive back. It's even more of a dynamic position than linebacker. Yeah. You can make a lot more plays there that impact the game. What Te'o has done has been exceptional for his position, but I don't know if it's been anywhere close to what Manziel's done for Texas A&M. Whenever you're discussed in the same argument as Cam Newton, I mean that's gigantic. He's a redshirt freshman. He got to play under another great quarterback in Ryan Tannehill last year. You could tell he learned a lot from Tannehill. He's got that Heisman moment now. He beat Alabama, who has a chance to now win the national championship. In my opinion, there's no way you could take it away from him.
Beating Alabama, who was the #1, top dog in the whole college football. No one thought they'd touch him. For Johnny Manziel to go there and, knock him off their high horse it's unbelievable, really. I think he's proven all year long that he's the guy. Definitely. All right, we have to take one more quick break, and we'll be right back with our BCS Bowl predictions right after this. Welcome back to the lineup. We're now going to take our pick of who will come out on top in this year's BCS Bowl games. The first game we're doing is the Rose Bowl, where number 6 Stanford will face the unranked Wisconsin, the Big Ten champions. Who we got?
I got Stanford. Unbelievable job what Stanford has done, moving on from Andrew Luck and Jim Harbaugh, and they've just done an excellent job. That program is at the top right now. You gotta love what you're seeing from the Pac-12 as well this year. They look very good. I got Stanford over Wisconsin.
Yeah, David Shaw's done a great job over at Stanford this year after Andrew Luck. I just think that their defense is going to be too much for Monty Ball and the Wisconsin Badgers. All right, next up we have the Orange Bowl, where number 12 Florida State will face number 15 Northern Illinois.
A lot of people don't even think that Northern Illinois should be in this position. I believe you're included in that. Florida State has an excellent defense. They always have, and I got Florida State.
I thought Northern Illinois was the number 15 D3 team until this slide, so I'm going to take Florida State. They're too fast on offense and too tough on defense. Not even a question. On to the Sugar Bowl, where we have number 3 Florida going up against the number 21 Louisville Cardinals.
Once again, an automatic bid that probably is not deserved for the Big East. Louisville barely beat Rutgers. Do you really think Rutgers would have beat Florida? Florida is an excellent team. SEC, Big East, I don't even think is a matchup at this point. They got to take that automatic bid away from the Big East.
Yes, if Louisville beats Rutgers, they deserve to be in the Beef O'Brady's Bowl, not a BCS Bowl, so I'm going to take Florida. Again, an SEC team, they could argue been in the championship game if they had not lost that game earlier in the year. I think they're going to be way too much for Louisville. The Fiesta Bowl. Now, this side of all the games is my favorite because two big offenses, two not that good defenses, can be a shootout. So we have number 4 Oregon and the number 5 Kansas State Wildcats.
This is definitely going to be the most entertaining game. I absolutely, and I'm sure the entire country agrees with me, I absolutely love watching Oregon play. They play the most exciting football game that you could watch over 60 minutes on any level. I'm going to take them because I think that their offense is unstoppable. They never punt, they never kick field goals. They're always going for touchdowns. And to be honest, the very few times that I've seen Kansas State play was not entirely impressed with them. I like Oregon in this matchup.
Yeah, the thing with Kansas State, I feel like as a team, I don't know if they're that great, but literally Colin Klein has just been the ultimate X factor all year long. Like I said earlier, he's just gotten the job done. But I think Oregon's speedy offense, DeAnthony Thomas is the biggest playmaker in the country. He's unreal. I think between him, Kenjon Barner, and the freshman Mariota, he's going to be good, man. I think that he's going to lead them past Kansas State. All right, on to the big one, the championship game. Number 1 Notre Dame versus number 2 Alabama.
Well, I think Alabama is probably going to be a favorite going into this game. I'm not sure. I haven't seen the line come out yet. But, I'm going to take Notre Dame, and why not? It's going to be a fun one to watch. Notre Dame has kind of been the underdog all year, which is tough to say when you're looking at the #1 team in the country. But they have an excellent defense that's going to keep them in this game. And it's going to be tough for them to keep up scoring-wise, but if they could hold Alabama down to a reasonable game in the 20s, I think that they have a shot to pull this one off.
Notre Dame's been a great story all year, but for me, that's about it. I think Alabama's been the most dominant team in the country until the Heisman winner walked in there and beat them. But other than that, A.J. McCarron is going to be a very good quarterback in the next few years. The defense is ridiculous. They have probably the top offensive line in the country, and they have 2 big bruising running backs that are just playmakers. So I think it'll be a close one. Notre Dame's got a good defense, but I just think in the end, Alabama's going to win this one.
And it's definitely going to be an uglier game than the Kansas State-Oregon game, so maybe not as attractive to the fan base, but it'll still be an entertaining game.
Roll Tide! All right, we are all out of time, so that does it for this edition of Lions Lineup. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you would like to become a part of Lions Lineup or work for LTV, email our account at ltv@tcnj.edu. For Joe Caputo and all of us at LTV, I'm Chris Drabick. We'll see you next time.